visit a Spectrum store today.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. President Trump challenged U.S. allies Wednesday by increasing tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports to 25% as he vowed to take back what he calls wealth stolen by other countries. The move drew quick retaliation from Europe and Canada, leaving the stock market in more chaos. Democrats are criticizing the president, saying the tariffs will hurt Americans.
They're just paying more. I mean, more for groceries, gas, everyday essentials, and it's only going to be compounded by Donald Trump's tariff plan.
Trump says a peace agreement is now in the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin after Ukraine accepted a U.S. proposed ceasefire. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Wednesday he expects the U.S. to take, quote, strong steps against Russia if Moscow rejects the proposal. Trump says U.S. officials are on their way to Russia to discuss the deal.
But we had a great success yesterday. We have a full ceasefire. If it kicks in, we have to see. It's up to Russia now.
Prominent Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil will remain in an ICE detention facility for now, following a procedural hearing in New York Wednesday. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Feels like spring for most of the country, but the West Coast, it is active rain and snow. Severe weather will be likely later on this week, especially towards the Mississippi River Valley late on Friday. Much of Illinois, Western Kentucky, St. Louis included as well, Memphis, Tennessee, and much of Mississippi. Wind, hail, and a few tornadoes will be possible. We'll talk more about this coming up.
It's all eyes on Washington as another round of tariffs by President Donald Trump causing immediate retaliation from Canada and the European Union. Plus, lawmakers on Capitol Hill racing to avoid a government shutdown. But Democrats say they're prepared to block the House GOP spending bill. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. More on the budget battle in just moments. But first, Trump imposing a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports. And it comes as the president welcomed the Prime Minister of Ireland at the White House Wednesday. Our national political reporter, Taylor Populares, kicks off our coverage at the White House.
Ireland's Prime Minister traditionally pays a visit to the White House ahead of St. Patrick's Day. During Wednesday's trip, President Donald Trump wasted no time bashing the European Union for its trade policies.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years.
He also singled out Ireland, which is part of the EU, for attracting U.S. businesses with low tax rates. The comments came hours after the EU announced $28 billion in tariffs on U.S. products if the president keeps in place 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to the U.S. that took effect Wednesday. The president seemed open to negotiating until April 2nd, when he's promised to impose even more tariffs on any country he deems an unfair trading partner.
I'll always have flexibility, but there will be very little flexibility once we start. April 2nd is going to be a very big day for the United States of America.
Democrats on Wednesday bashed the president's tariff policies, which are designed to bring manufacturing jobs to the U.S., but threaten to drive up prices.
Donald Trump's erratic decisions, yes, no, maybe, this country, that country, is creating havoc in the economy.
Although the president criticized Ireland for becoming a hub for pharmaceutical companies, he kept an overall friendly tone with the Prime Minister, Michael Martin. Martin praised Trump for trying to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. He also cautiously talked up that over 700 Irish companies are now based in America.
And I think it's a very good relationship we have. It's a historic one. It's happened over time.
Taylor Populares joins us from the White House. Taylor, it has been a roller coaster of a week on Wall Street as investors deal with the back and forth of tariffs. And a new inflation report Wednesday also playing a role. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Sharon, it honestly is changing hour by hour. That inflation report, economists say, was slightly better than expected. Prices are still rising, especially things like grocery prices, but not as much as maybe economists were predicting. But a lot of them are saying that because these tariffs are so come and go and touch and go, that they're expecting prices to go up moving forward. The White House, though, was quick to jump on that inflation report and say this is kind of proof that their strategy is working. But as you alluded to, the stock market has been feeling otherwise over the last couple of weeks. Stocks have been up and down because almost every hour President Trump is making changes in terms of his approach to these tariffs and his strategy along with it. So this remains a very fluid situation, but the White House insists that the president's day one promise of lowering prices immediately is still being pursued, even though we're now into month 3 of this presidency.
All right, Taylor Populares at the White House. Thanks. Developing Thursday on Capitol Hill, Democrats say they are prepared to block a House GOP spending bill, moving the country one step closer to a government shutdown. Now, the deadline to pass a budget bill is Friday night. Spectrum's Evan Kozloff is in Washington with the latest.
The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
The Republican-backed spending bill cleared its first hurdle Tuesday night, passing in the House in a near-party line vote with the support of just one Democrat. But this bill will need a lot more buy-in from Democrats to clear the Senate.
I am unwilling to vote to shut the government down.
Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania was the first Democrat senator to support the stopgap funding measure. To pass, at least 7 other Democrats would need to join him.
And it wasn't that long ago that we were scolding that the Republicans threatening to shut the government down.
The measure, known as a continuing resolution or CR, would keep federal agencies funded for 6 more months, preventing a partial shutdown on Friday night. Democrats have pushed back on the short-term CR because they argue it would do nothing to stop the sweeping spending and staffing cuts that the president and his ally Elon Musk are making across the government, most recently at the Department of Education.
It's basically a dirty deal.
The bill presents Democrats with a painful choice. Voting it down would shut down the government, but they argue that letting it pass would enable the president and Musk to continue slashing federal programs.
I don't think CRs are a good option, and government shutdowns are not a good option.
Democrats also object to a provision that would force the District of Columbia to cut $1.1 billion from its local budget.
D.C. cannot be the pawn. You can't hurt district children, hurt district taxpayers, and say, oh, well, we're just passing the budget.
Now, we also heard from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer late Wednesday, who said that there are just not enough Democrat yes votes to pass this GOP plan, which does open the door to a shutdown on Friday if they can't reach a deal. Minority Leader Schumer is now proposing, Sharon, a 30-day extension to try and give them time to cut a deal.
Evan, we're also following new policy changes Wednesday from the Trump administration. The president is rolling back several major climate policies. What can you tell us?
Right, so this was all announced by Lee Zeldin, that's the administrator for the EPA, and essentially he said that they are rolling back some 31 environmental rules. I want to read you a quote that he had here, saying that this was to drive a dagger through the heart of climate change religion, calling it the most consequential day of deregulation in American history. Among the regulations, we should note that one of them was the rewriting of a 2009 finding, essentially saying that greenhouse gases endanger public health. This matters because it's the underpinning for a lot of the U.S. action against climate change. Of course, as you can expect, a lot of environmental advocates and Democrats have been blasting this move. Among them, the top Democrat on the House Energy Committee said that this is a despicable betrayal. Sharon.
All right, Evan Kozloff in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Protester detained. What a judge says about a Columbia University student who could face deportation. Just ahead on Spectrum News.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I really am in the middle of nowhere. Every day is different. Chores, come on, homeschooling, and then I fit in the rug business. I just got a new batch of rugs that I'd love to show you. I have a website, and a lot of what I do is sharing my home life. Mommy's leaving. Reliable, high-speed internet is the foundation of our business. Spectrum was great. They went out of their way to make sure that I was okay and I was taken care of. Shoo! And that's the awesomeness of having Spectrum.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Severe weather will be likely late week into the weekend for the Mississippi River Valley, also towards the East Coast. But for the time being, it feels like spring for most spots. The West Coast active with rain and snow. A lot of the nation very quiet, very warm air. But to the west, that's where the active weather has been for today. Northern California, San Francisco, northbound into Portland and Seattle, we're looking at rain. But look at those numbers the next 3 days, hitting the 70s, even 80 in Louisville by the end of the week. 87 tomorrow in Dallas, that's toasty. 87 in Houston. And notice Chicago even into the 70s on Friday before it cools down by the weekend. Here's that West Coast storm, the water vapor loop showing you that moisture, aiming it right into the Pacific Northwest. Then more heads your way by Friday and the weekend. We'll look at Southern California. This is this evening. San Francisco, some rain, but notice it heads southbound tonight into tomorrow morning. So LA, it is wet for tomorrow morning. Also San Diego, that will go through Arizona, also New Mexico. And then Friday, more moisture moves in for California. As we look at winds too, we're really seeing some active wind gusts for portions of Oklahoma, also western Texas, the Panhandle as well, through New Mexico, also into California. We're looking at wind advisories. And in the Plain States into Texas, you combine those winds with low humidity, critical fire danger through this evening. Into the Pacific Northwest, there's that rain, mountain snow continuing tonight into tomorrow morning. A bit of a break later on Thursday, and then Friday, more moisture moves in. A lot of winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings up for the Sierra Nevada, and you can see why. We're looking at feet of snow, 1 to 3 feet of snow for the Sierra Nevada.
If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. President Trump will increase tariffs on all steel aluminum imports to 25%. The European Union and Canada have since announced billions in retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. Pope Francis resumed physical and respiratory therapy Wednesday following another night of quiet rest. Francis is making improvements, but it's unclear when he will be released. And Greenland's pro-independence party has pulled off a surprise win. The party has pushed back against Trump's rhetoric to take over the island nation and seeks Greenland's independence from Denmark. That's what you need to know. U.S. arms deliveries to Ukraine resumed Wednesday after President Trump lifted the suspension of military aid. This as Ukraine accepted a 30-day ceasefire proposal by the U.S. Officials say the temporary ceasefire would allow both sides to prepare a plan to end the Ukraine-Russia war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed what he believes will need to be done during the ceasefire.
We have our proposals, but we need to put on paper the agreed steps with our allies, the agreed steps and formats of certain security guarantees that will be in Ukraine after the end of this war.
Russia has yet to accept the deal. The Kremlin says Moscow is waiting for more information about the proposal from the U.S. Pope Francis's recovery from double pneumonia is ongoing as he approaches the anniversary of his election. The Vatican says the 88-year-old resumed physical and respiratory therapy Wednesday following another night of quiet rest. Doctors say the Pope is making slow, gradual improvements. Now, it's not clear when the Pope could be released from the hospital. The pontiff once again participated remotely in the Vatican's spiritual retreat. Thursday will mark 12 years since Pope Francis was elected. New details Thursday in a case receiving national attention. Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil will remain in ICE detention following a procedural hearing in New York Wednesday. Khalil was arrested last weekend for his role in protests against the Israel-Hamas war at Columbia University last spring. His green card was revoked by the Trump administration, which is seeking his deportation. Inspection's Bobby Kuza joins me now with more. And Bobby, what came out of Thursday's hearing and what have we learned and heard from Khalil's lawyers?
Well, I mean, for now, we're sort of in the status quo. He remains in detention in Louisiana, and he cannot be deported pending the outcome of this case. One of the things we learned in court today is that his attorneys have had trouble even getting in touch with him. He was arrested on Saturday night and subsequently transferred to Louisiana. They haven't been able to talk to him on the phone. There was one brief phone call that was cut off. So the judge today actually ordered that they be allowed to have a phone call of at least an hour, both today and tomorrow. But other than that, they didn't really get into the merits of the case today, but we heard from Khalil's attorneys outside of court afterwards. They say that this is basically an infringement on his constitutionally protected speech, that he was targeted because of his role in these Palestinian protests last spring, but that this is protected speech, protected activity, and so that this is basically just an instance of political repression on the part of the Trump administration.
You know, Bobby, the president is also saying Khalil's arrest is just the first of many to come. So why is this case being seen by many Americans as a turning point in history in regards to freedoms in America?
Right. Well, I mean, he's a permanent resident, right? Yes. He is not some sort of undocumented immigrant, and so there are certain protections that you receive, but you don't have to be criminally convicted in order to be deported or to have your green card revoked. So this is a little bit of a gray area legally, and so because it's almost unprecedented, a lot of people are looking to this as maybe setting a legal precedent, and there are obviously constitutional concerns that this is an attack on free speech. The Trump administration, of course, says that he is basically a supporter of Hamas, and that based on that and national security concerns, that is enough of a justification to revoke his green card.
So interesting. And a lot of people with green cards watching this very closely to see what happens as well.
Yeah.
Bobby Kuza, thank you so much for your time. Authorities have identified a person of interest in the search for University of Pittsburgh student Shodisha Konanki, who went missing while on spring break in the Dominican Republic. Authorities in Virginia say the 20-year-old was seen leaving her hotel with a group of people for the beach. But when they left, Konanki stayed behind with the young man. Hours later, the man was reportedly seen leaving the area alone. Officials say he has been questioned by police, but is not considered an official suspect at this time.
May have been drunk, he may not remember, he may have been passed out. So we have to consider all the possibilities in not only focusing on one individual.
Crews are searching by land, sea, and air for the 20-year-old. Officials say it remains unclear if foul play was involved or if there was a terrible accident. A newborn with measles is among the growing cases in the Texas outbreak, prompting a health expert reminder that both newborns and pregnant women are at a higher risk of complications from the virus. Now, according to officials at Covenant Hospital in Lubbock, at least 2 pregnant women have been infected. 81 measles cases have been reported in children ages 4 and younger. And according to the CDC, have been found in at least 12 states. SpaceX's latest mission, why it's not just another routine trip. Just ahead on Spectrum News.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Severe weather season, and we're already tracking severe storms by late Friday for the Mississippi River Valley, and then Friday night into Saturday, the Ohio Valley, also the southern states. Sunday, the East Coast, the risk for severe storms, all because of a low pressure from the West Coast spreading eastbound. It really gets organized in the plain states with fuel from the Gulf of Mexico, warm air, humid air, colliding with that colder air from the upper Midwest. So they're clashing. They don't like each other, so that's why we have that chance for severe weather. As we look ahead into this evening, it's the Pacific Northwest, also California, rain and mountain snow. There's that system around Denver by Friday afternoon. Look what happens. It really gets organized into the plains with the trailing cold front. There's that zone of severe weather for the Mississippi River Valley, St. Louis by Friday evening and overnight. Then it's Saturday for the Ohio Valley into the Gulf Coast states, and then it's the East Coast again by Sunday. So from about Philadelphia south into Georgia, the risk for severe storms. We'll look at Friday evening first. A level 3 out of 5 risk for severe storms for much of Illinois, St. Louis, Paducah, Kentucky, also western Tennessee into much of Mississippi, western Alabama. So the risk for severe weather, where we're looking at wind, the primary threat, but also hail and a few tornadoes with this system late on Friday. That will move south and east towards Saturday. So Birmingham, Atlanta, Mobile, likely chance for severe storms, and still the threat for severe storms through West Virginia, also into Ohio on Saturday. Then on Sunday, it's from Philadelphia, D.C., Richmond, south into Savannah, Georgia, that risk for severe storms. So you can see the warmth. We're feeling like spring for tomorrow. Louisville, southbound into New Orleans, 82 in New Orleans for tomorrow, even 60s for Minneapolis. Then on Friday, mid-70s in Chicago, that warm air out of the south ahead of the storm, cooler air behind the system. system. And then on Saturday, you can see the warm air being shunted farther to the south and east. So compared to average, 22 degrees warmer on Friday in Kansas City, 30 degrees warmer on Friday in Chicago, but towards the weekend, temperatures will start to cool back down.
It was a sweet homecoming for one California kitty and her owner. A woman reunited with her cat Aggie 2 months after the Palisades wildfire left her family's home in ashes.
You're kidding. Baby. I'm so happy to see you. Hi, baby. We'll take all the time.
Aggie had been missing for 2 months following the wildfire and was feared to be dead. Well, the woman received a call from Animal Services telling them Aggie had been found near her home. The Maine Coon was in need of some care, but will return home with her family on Thursday.
Aggie.
4 astronauts are getting ready to blast off to the International Space Station. Launch is set for 7:48 p.m. Eastern Time from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And Spectrum's Ariel Wessler joins me with a preview of Wednesday's launch. Ariel, what are you hearing?
Well, Sharon, launch officials are predicting a greater than 95% chance of favorable weather conditions for this launch of the Falcon 9 rocket. So great conditions is what they're saying. On board that SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will be 2 NASA astronauts. They'll be on the top there in that Dragon spacecraft. There'll be Commander Anne McClain and pilot Nicole Ayers, along with Japanese astronaut Takuya Onishi and cosmonaut Kirill Peskov. If all goes as planned, their spacecraft is expected to dock at the International Space Station on Thursday morning. Much of the focus has been on astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, who will now be able to return to Earth as part of this mission. They've been at the ISS since June after only expecting to be there a week.
A typical duration for a space station mission is about 6 months. But just in the last 10 years, we've had 5 U.S. astronauts that have flown over 290 days. And so the duration that Butch and Sunny have been flying is a little bit longer than our typical 6 months, but it's also not on the higher end of what we've seen over the last 10 years.
Yeah, they had issues with that Starliner spacecraft and had to come back to Earth without the astronauts on board. McClain says she expects it to be a typical handover, though, which will take a few days. And then Wilmore and Williams and 2 others will board the Crew 9 SpaceX Dragon and head back to Earth. They could splash down off the Florida coast as early as this Sunday, Sharon.
Wow, fascinating. All right, Ariel, how long will Crew 10 be there, and what will they be doing?
So Crew 10 is expected to be up there for about 6 months. You can think of the ISS like an orbiting laboratory, and NASA says the astronauts will be performing research, technology demonstrations, and maintenance activities. Specifically, though, the crew is scheduled to conduct flammability tests for future spacecraft designs, and they're also going to participate, NASA says, in exercise and medical research with the goal of keeping astronauts in shape during future long-duration space missions. According to NASA, these are just a few of more than 200 scientific experiments taking place during their mission. Some of them could even lead to new discoveries here on Earth. Sharon?
So interesting. All right, Ariel Wessler in El Segundo, California. Thanks. I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News at 9 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
It's game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities.